Sports Buzz, the Fan-atical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here in studio, not live. Just doing a tape show on a Tuesday afternoon. What is today? The 25th of October. We are creeping up on Halloween. So we got into the spirit with a little Halloween music there. Well done by the director, Mr. Mike Toohey.
Yes.
Perhaps Halloween Candy Ryan Timnab is out there helping with the audio. Is it still going? I can't tell. Anyways, we are here doing a tape show, so no phone lines are open. We know you're all depressed about that because you call every week when they are open. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're doing, we'll be here 6:30 to 7, and we're going to go over some stuff. World Series history.
Yes.
We will be talking about. We'll get to some NFL standings as we almost hit the mid part of the season. Where does it go?
It went fast.
We'll do a little touch on NHL early season action. The NBA action, is it going to be fantastic? Underway tonight on a Tuesday. Remember, this show is airing on a Thursday. We are taping on a Tuesday. Let's say hello to my right-hand man, Mr. Bob Broad Jr.
Hi, Scott.
How's it going there, Bob?
I'm doing well. I'm waiting for the World Series that's been waiting to happen for a very long time.
Yeah, very long time for two cities, that's for sure. We're looking at a nice picture of you, Bob, with your family. Where did you say? Where was this?
This was at Hallis's Farm Sunday.
Hallis's. Oh, yeah, that's a good place.
We had a lot of fun. Yeah, pumpkins.
Nice.
For junior, they were fundraiser for junior diabetes. So.
Okay. How did the firefighters thing go the other weekend?
It went very well. We had a very good
juniors
turnout.
Get their badges?
Yes, we did.
All right. Anybody help put out a fire, or did they start fires?
Oh, they were putting out fires.
Were you putting out the fires?
No, the kids were.
Okay.
The kids were putting out but they were having a good time. They had a blast, you know.
Right. Yeah, well, Hallis's Farm is a good place. I've been there many times to get Christmas trees. Never got a pumpkin there, but I know they got good stuff. All right, that's our man Bob. He's got his show Spotlight on Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. Mr. Toohey, Mike Toohey, the director, is in the control room flying solo today. His show, Expose Cinema, Friday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 1. This Friday night, the 28th, I believe that is, a little Halloween special. I believe we taped it this past week, and I think he's airing that on Friday night. So it was a pretty good show, as usual. He does his specialty shows. Every now and then we get him off the politics, which has just been horrible. Bob, I got good news for you.
What's that?
As of today, 2 weeks until the election, right?
Right.
No more debates. That's the good news.
No more listening to them
We got
yell
2
at
more
each other.
weeks to deal with this people talking about it, but at least, I can't believe it, Bob. This is the first time ever I did not watch a single part of any of the debates.
No, I haven't either, really. And I really don't care one way or the other. Because
I mean, I care one way or the other, but I was so taken out of this election a long time ago. It's just been a fiasco.
Oh.
From the word go, and the media, of course. I think.
Yeah, the media is blowing it so far out.
But, you know, the
proportion.
media can't do what they can do if people don't watch them, and people
Right.
watch them, so their ratings go through the roof, so the people are a part of the problem as well. Don't take yourself off the hook there and just say it's the media. You too, people, all in on this nonsense. All right, let's get into the action because we got plenty to get to. Major League Baseball history is about to unfold tonight with the Cubs taking on the Indians. The Cubs had to work a little bit harder in their NLCS than the Indians did in the ALCS, that's for sure. But it was the Cubs prevailing over the Dodgers in 6 games as they held them off. They fell behind in that series 2-1. And early in that game 4, Bob, there was a pivotal play. Now, you know, the game ended up getting out of control, and the Cubs did pull away and win that game 4 handily. But if you remember now, they're down 2-1.
Right.
They're squeezing those bats tight. They weren't hitting at all.
No.
It's a scoreless game in the 4th inning. And Adrian Gonzalez comes to the plate sliding, and he beats the tag.
Yeah.
They go to the replay, and on the replay you can see he beat the tag.
Yeah.
And they call him out inexplicably anyways, even with the review. And I think that's a huge part of this whole series. You know, you don't know what would happen, But all of a sudden, if the Dodgers take an early lead in that game and the Cubs still haven't scored any runs after being shut down in the first 3 games, and there it is right there, we got the picture. And if he's safe and that inning continues and they get another run or so,
right,
you have no idea what might happen in that whole series or that game. Instead, the bottom of the inning, the Cubs have a play at the plate, and the center fielder for the Dodgers just pulled a Jackie Bradley Jr., what he did in the series against the Indians. I mean, he's got him dead to right at the plate. He does not make the throw, so there is no close play that the umps can screw up one way or the other.
Right.
And the Cubs end up taking the lead in the bottom of the inning instead, or the top of that following inning. And they get the lead, and then they start tacking on runs, and they run away with it. And they took the momentum back, and then they pretty much rolled from there. Clayton Kershaw had his moments in this postseason, but he was no Madison Bumgarner. Not in postseason play. We know he's had a sordid past with how he does with the postseason performances. He did do better this year, at least, but he did not come up with the goods in the postseason, and especially the deciding game, as they got shut out, 6-0, as it was a no contest. He gave up some runs early, gave up some runs in the middle, and he was gone by the 6th or 7th inning, and it was all over, and it was just about time for the Cubs, many of whom have lived an entire lifetime never even seeing them make it to the World Series, let alone win one. 1908, we remember the last time they won it, and 1945, the last time they were there. We'll go over some of the history in a second, but let's just talk about the Indians first. It was Tito and Coco. How about that? Some more Red Sox players. We know with the Cubs, it's Theo Epstein, John Lester, and John Lackey, former Red Sox. But the Indians have the Red Sox connection as well. And it was Coco Crisp with the home run in the deciding Game 5 against Toronto, as they won it in 5 easily. Cleveland did. They were up 3-0. Toronto held them off in Game 4, but in Game 5, it was all Cleveland. There we see Ava Napoli, Mike Napoli, was back and performing well. Andrew Miller, former Red Sox as well. Coco Crisp hit the big home run in the Game 5 decider, and they're led, of course, by the manager, Terry Tito Francona, the man who helped lead the Red Sox to breaking the curse in 2004 and got them a second one in 2007 before being ungloriously shipped out of town in after the 2011 season. So a lot of Red Sox connections there, but let's get to the history. First, we'll just say the Tribe are rested. They've won 7 of 8 games in the postseason. They swept the Red Sox. Their pitching staff is a little bit in shambles, at least the starters with their injuries, but their bullpen is phenomenal, and they got guys that are just hitting in the clutch. I think they're hitting better than the Cubs a little bit. The Cubs are a lot of, swing and miss. Right. Either big power, big run scoring games, or shut down. So it's going to be interesting. The Cubs rallied after being down 2-1, and they won 3 straight. So they are back feeling good about themselves as well. And it's the AL, the home team, and that game is tonight, Tuesday. Remember, the show airing on a Thursday, but we're taping it on a Tuesday. And the interesting side note you mentioned before we started the show, Bob, the Cleveland Cavaliers open their season tonight with the ring ceremony across the street.
So it's going to be a it's going to be a...
Will it affect either crowd? I would imagine there's enough people in Cleveland to get to both games, but still, interesting. World Series Game 1, and then across the street, the Cavs against the Knickerbockers, as a matter of fact, with the ring ceremony. All right, here's some history, Bob. So the Cubs, much like the Red Sox, had a lot of early success before being dropped with the hammer of the curse. And their success dates all the way back before the World Series even came to be. In the late 1800s, they won 6 championships between 1876 and 1888 as the Chicago White Stockings.
Yes.
Interesting note, because of course the crosstown rival is the White Sox.
Right.
Their name was then changed to the Colts, and then to the Orphans, which had something to do with their owner. Apparently,
maybe I guess he was
an
owner. He was owner of an orphanage and whatever.
Okay, that's what it was. So they were briefly the Colts and briefly the Orphans. In 1902, the local press started nicknaming them the Cubs.
Right.
By 1907, the name was officially changed to the Cubs. And they were in the World Series that year and won it for the first time. But in 1906, was the first time they were actually in the World Series. They had the most dominant team in baseball, won 116 games, a record that stood until the Seattle Mariners, remember, in 2001,
Yes.
tied that record. So 116 wins. Who did they face in that World Series, Bob, in 1906? The light-hitting crosstown rival, Chicago White Sox, who only batted .230 team batting average on the whole season. Somehow they made it to the World Series, and somehow they beat the dominant Cubs in 6 games. But they did come back in 1907 and 1908 to win their lone 2 championships as the Cubs. And then, of course, they made it back in 1910.
Right.
They made it back in 1918. If you remember, Babe Ruth was still with the Red Sox then as a pitcher. And the Red Sox did beat the Cubs in 1918. There we see the called shot in this famous photo from 1932.
Now, you
actually
know how,
a painting.
You know about the called shot, right?
Well, tell me about it, Bob.
Well, the called shot was, Ruth said he had 2 strikes on him. And he said he's going to hit that next one right over the fence.
And he pointed.
And then pointed, and it went.
Right over the fence.
Yes.
Babe Ruth's called shot, 1932. They beat him, so they lost in 1910, 1918, 1929, 1932, 1935, 1938, and 1945.
Which was the last time the Cubs were in the World Series, right?
Last time they were in the World Series. In 1907, a sweep of Ty Cobb, one of the all-time great players, Tigers. In 1908, they won the pennant on a makeup game after the season was over against the Giants before beating the Tigers again. But it was 1945, and I believe this series was against the Tigers, who had exacted revenge on them. And this is when the Billy Goat curse came into play.
He would not let him in. They would not let him in the stadium.
Ironically enough, now that I think about it, I had a picture of the Billy Goat curse, and that's the one that got blacked out.
Yeah.
So maybe the curse is alive and well even in the photos. I couldn't even bring that photo, and there it is.
There's the photo.
Or maybe it's either that or the black cat. I had two. I had the goat and the black cat. Both those pictures got blacked out on us. But 1945, they were up 2-1 in the series. Billy Sianis, the owner of the Billy Goat Tavern, was asked to leave Wrigley Field because he had his goat with him.
Yes.
And the smell was bothering the local patrons in the stadium that were sitting close to him. As he walked out, he muttered the words, "Them Cubs, they ain't gonna win no more."
And they haven't for over 100
years. And they have not. They lost game 4 and 5. They did win game 6 in that series, but lost in 7 to the Tigers, have not been back. And then, of course, Bob, we all know what happened in 2003, the Bartman game, when they thought, Cubs fans did.
They thought they were going to get rid of the curse, but
winning by multiple runs in that game. And there it was, the foul ball that could have ended it. And they could have broken the curse possibly that year. They would have had to beat the Yankees, because the Yankees also kept the Red Sox curse alive that year in the extra inning session against Tim Wakefield home run, Brett Bleepin' Butler.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't need to go down that road. So that's the Cubs' history. Some interesting stuff right there. We'll see if they can break that curse.
Hey, it's going to be a World Series that hasn't been, and it will be one to watch.
I did hear from Strangeman. I thought he might show up. We know Halloween's his favorite holiday.
Well, no, actually, it's my favorite holiday, too.
Oh, isn't it your birthday?
Yes.
That's right. It's going to be Bob's birthday on a Monday. Yes. Halloween on Monday. Yes. Party this weekend, Bob?
Possible.
Well, yes, it is going to. Well, I did hear from Strangeman, even though he didn't come down, and he posed the question, is this the World Series with the teams with the longest World Series droughts? It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Because the Indians have been since 1948.
Right, since they actually won.
Since they won. Cubs since 1908. And the Indians won in 1920 against the Brooklyn Dodgers, and then in 1948 against the Boston Braves.
Right.
So it's been a long time for them as well. They did make it back in 1954, and that was the Say Hey Kid Willie Mays with the most famous catch of all time, the over-the-shoulder catch and then throw to the plate, right?
Right.
Didn't even look, unloaded from deep center field on the fly to home plate. And then more recently, the Indians, and I remember this very well because en route to getting to the 1995 and 1997 World Series, they knocked off my Red Sox. And
yes.
The 1995 one was particularly stinging. If you remember, Bob, that was the Mo Vaughn, Jose Canseco Red Sox year, the year Mo Vaughn won the MVP. And in that series, Bob, Mo and Jose went a combined, I think, 0 for 30. It was ugly, a 3-game sweep. And that was also the year, well, first of all, Tony Jalapeno, who was a former Red Sox catcher and had left for Cleveland that year, hit a crucial home run, I believe, in Game 1 to win that game. And then later in that series, Albert Bell, and I still have nightmares about this image, hit the home run, Bob, and the Red Sox decided they were going to check his bat because if you remember,
he
got caught with the corked bat early in the season. And do you remember that entire story, Bob? This was one of the great stories of all time. The umpires confiscated the bat. They had it in the umpire's room. And then a Cleveland Indian player crawled through the ceiling, took out one of the ceiling tiles, lowered himself down into the umpire's office and stole the bat.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So anyways, the Red Sox check his bat after he hits the home run. They find it's clean, no cork. Albert Bell is in the dugout saying, "There's your bleeping cork right here," to the Red Sox, and they swept him in that series. That Cleveland team was good. I'm surprised they didn't win a World Series. They had Jim Thome, a young Manny Ramirez, Kenny Lofton, who at that time I thought was the best all-around player in the game. But they went down to the Braves in '95 and then also to the Florida Marlins in 1997, the infamous Jose Mesa, a.k.a. Joe Table, gives up the hit at the end of was that Gary Sheffield who came up with the hit?
Yes, I believe so.
And Counsell scored the winning run, and they won it. The Marlins did, the first of their 2 World Series titles, and the Indians have not been back there since, and they are back now. So that's the story with baseball. You got some history there, a lot on the line. We'll see what happens by the time we're here next week. I believe we're live on Thursday. I think the World Series will be over.
I'll say Cubs in 6.
I personally am rooting for my man Tito and the Cubs. You know, I've talked about it many times in the show, Bob. As a Red Sox fan, I have had a long-standing affiliation to rooting for the Cubs. And I typically would root for the Cubs. But when they hired Joe Maddon, former Tampa Bay Ray manager who has had many a dust-up with the Red Sox, and a long time ago, 2007, 2008, moved quickly to the top of my most hated manager list, and he stays there firmly planted in my mind as a fake class guy who thinks he's all cool and smarter than you, totally arrogant. I can't stand him personally, so I have a hard time, I'm sorry, rooting for the Cubs right now. Typically I might, but especially since they're playing against Tito and Napoli and Coco, you know, I got to go for the Indians, and I think the Indians are playing well. I wonder what this layoff between games will do to them, you know, but they seem to have something going. I wouldn't be surprised if they came with the win, but it has been the year of the Cubs, so we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll break that curse. One team is going to go home happy, but it's also been the year of Cleveland.
Yeah, so either way it pans out, it'll be a great World Series.
It will be. So we'll get rid of the NBA right now. We don't really have much to say other than it is the NBA action getting underway tonight. Knicks at Cavs for the ring ceremony. Spurs at Golden State later tonight. And that's a Tuesday night where this show's airing on a Thursday. No Tim Duncan for the first time in 20-something years, right? He's retired. Tomorrow, Wednesday night, Celtics host the Brooklyn Nets. All right, so let's run through some NFL standings, Bob. We're almost at the midpoint of the season, so I thought we'd catch up on the actual standings instead of breaking down individual games of our teams in particular.
Your Patriots are in first place still.
6-1 atop the AFC. Nice win against the Steelers and the banged up no Ben Roethlisberger there down in Blitzburg, but they took care of business. So they are 6-1, and they get the rematch with the only team that has beaten them this year,
Sexy
the Buffalo
Rexy's
Bills. Yes, Sexy Rexy. who looked like for a little while on Sunday they were going to be moving to a 5-game winning streak and coming into that game at 5-2 at Orchard Park, but they can't handle prosperity, Bob.
No.
The Miami Dolphins rallied against them, so the Bills stand at 4-3. Dolphins improved to 3-4. Really, not very good season, but at 3-4,
they still got some time left.
You're not dead and buried like the Jets at 2-5. How about what happened with the Jets this weekend, Bob? I thought it was a mistake making the quarterback change. Everybody knew before the season started that their first 6 games of the season were brutal schedule-wise. You get a Ravens team that is reeling now coming in. That's when you let Fitzpatrick get his confidence back. Instead, they benched him for Geno Smith. Geno Smith, who actually looked okay early in the game, goes down with an ACL injury. He's out for the year.
Yeah, he's
Fitzpatrick comes in, and he rallies them, and they win. So they are 2-5, and they get the Browns this weekend, so they could easily go to 3-5.
Well, unless the Browns...
Maybe not so easily.
Because the Browns are, 0-7?
0-7,
So
correct.
they may get their first win.
Browns have been in a lot of games this year. Last couple weeks, not so much. So we'll see what they do. AFC North, we saw some Steelers pictures there already. We mentioned the Ravens, but the Steelers, with the injury to Big Ben, not pulling away at 4-3.
Right.
They had that loss to the Dolphins the other week, which was pretty inexplicable, really. Ravens now, after being 3-0, are 3-4.
Yeah,
after
went
they
quick.
lost to your Giants the other week, right? Or did they? Yeah.
Yes.
And they lost to the Jets too. So. Tough goings for the Ravens against the New York teams at 3-4. Bengals trying to right their ship, really up and down here for them at 3-4. And we mentioned the Browns. So that's the AFC North. AFC South, not a great division there either.
No.
Texans at 4-3. They got crushed by Denver. Osweiler's return back to the Broncos didn't go so well on the Monday night game. So he's down and out in Denver. They fall at 4-3. Colts lingering right behind them. All they do is beat their teams in the division. They blew that game against the Texans 2 weekends ago, or else they could be even with them or ahead of them, as a matter of fact. But they did beat the Titans this weekend. Titans just can't get over the hump and win those division games, especially against the Colts. So they're tied with the Colts at 3-4. The Jaguars at 2-4. They got the Thursday night matchup with the Jags and Titans as those two teams try to get over the hump. Will they? We don't know. AFC West, Raiders. How about them Raiders, Bob?
Yeah.
At 5-2, atop the division, tied with the Broncos, who broke their 2-game losing streak with the win over the Texans. Chiefs quietly going about their business at 4-2. Chargers also not so quietly. All their games are pretty exciting. That's a team to watch if you want exciting football. They beat Atlanta this weekend after a win the other 2 weekends ago as well. So they moved to 3-4. They beat the Broncos and the Falcons in back-to-back weeks, 2 top teams, really. So the Chargers, who lost all those games in the final 2 minutes, they're in every game. If they figure out how to finish, wait and see on the Chargers. They're still alive. NFC East, Bob. We move to the NFC. How about them Cowboys?
Yeah.
5-1.
Best record.
Coming off the bye, they beat the Packers in a beatdown game 2 weeks ago in Green Bay. Brett Favre was in the house. I texted my Packer friends, can he suit up? Because Rodgers looks terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Eagles with a much-needed win this weekend against Minnesota. They broke their 2-game skid, so they're 4-2. Redskins could not, another team who can't stand prosperity, Bob. They win 4 in a row, but they could not hold on late. And they lose to the Lions. They fall to 4-3, and your Giants improve to 4-3 with that ugly win in London against the Rams. What's with your offense?
I don't know. It's not there.
Odell Beckham had the big 4th and 2 catch and run in the Ravens game 2 weekends ago to break the skid at least. But, I mean, what a disgraceful performance after the touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you stand on that celebration, Bob?
I have no words for it.
That's a vomitous type situation. His antics on the sideline, really poor. NFC South, Falcons 4-3, Bucks 3-3, Saints 2-4, Panthers 1-5. Atlanta got jobbed on that pass interference call in Seattle, and then they've lost that game to San Diego, so they have lost 2 in a row. NFC West, Seahawks and Cardinals. How about that epic 6-6 tie on Sunday night? They're 4-1-1, 3-3-1.
I haven't seen a tie in.
That was horrible. Both teams missed chip shot field goals in overtime that would have won. All right, so we're running out of time. There is some good games this weekend, but I'm going to skip that. You just tune in yourself and figure it out. College football, Alabama remains number 1 as they pulled away late. Pretty good game against Texas A&M, but they did finish that 33-14. But the big upset this weekend, Penn State moves back into the top 25 for the first time in quite a while at number 24. They shock Ohio State 24-21. Ohio State moves back to 6. Clemson and Washington and Louisville rounded out the top 25. Some undefeated teams to watch out for: Nebraska, West Virginia, Boise State, who won a close game against Colorado State, 28-23. NHL, your Rangers are in first place. The Islanders are in 4th place.
Yeah.
My Bruins are in 5th place with a loss to the Canadiens. MLS soccer, Bob, the Revolution will not be televised because they are out of the playoffs. They did not make it. And the Red Bulls, how about this, Bob? A 20-match unbeaten streak.
Really?
As they head into the postseason with a bye. NYFC also with the bye. How about NASCAR, Bob? The local Connecticut Kid Joey Lagano
does it again.
Wins in Talladega after winning a couple weekends ago as well. He keeps himself alive in the chase for the Cup. He has made it to the final 8, and he is in there winning late. Remember last season, Bob, he was up towards the top of the standings, and he was undone late by a cheap shot where he was knocked out of a race and he fell prey. So maybe this year he's doing the come from behind thing.
Right.
He was, obviously he made the final Cup for the championship races, but you know, he was coming from behind. He was not high atop the standings. Now he's winning races late in this Cup race. He's firmly planted in the top 8 with 2 recent wins. Maybe he comes from behind and he gets that championship. The Middletown Kid, we'll see. Who knows? All right, we are running out of time. Happy Halloween to everybody.
Yes.
We hope you are safe and enjoy. What are the kids dressing up for? We got any ideas?
Don't know yet.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye out for that. We'll see if there's any good pictures, and we'll get those out for you next week. Next week, when we're here, we'll have a new,
we'll be live.
First time, I believe so, World Series champion in quite some while. So good luck to both teams and both their fans, and we are out of here.